Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name's Luke, and I am honored to have a returning guest of the show, Lucas, the Sniper Seibert, back to the show. Lucas, welcome.
What's up? What's up?
I have to excitedly announce that just yesterday you were crowned the 247 Fighting Championship 2022 award winner of Amateur Fighter of the Year. So, round of applause to you. And officially, this is the first time I've had a 247 Fighter of the Year on the show. Although I would love to have the other two Fighters of the Year on the show as well. But you're the first. So let's talk about that. What was it like getting that award yesterday? And what are your thoughts with your 2022 year? You made your debut and went 2-0.
Yeah, so I won newcomer of the year.
Hmm.
Yeah, you're good. But yeah, Julian won Amy, right?
Yes, I'm laughing because I literally did this for 2 hours yesterday. And this is why you you
Yeah,
you
you
should
texted
always,
me. You texted me and it said Amy Fighter of the Year. I was like, it's all right.
yeah,
But
but go
yeah,
ahead. Thanks for the
newcomer of the
correction.
year,
Very
newcomer of the
humble.
year. But I say it's newcomer of the year for pro and Amy. I mean, they didn't do one for pro, so
Correct.
yeah, it was cool, man. It was cool.
Mhm.
Was a co newcomer of the year with
Right.
Tony Welsh, who I was watching your guys' interview. I actually had a meeting at 8 o'clock, so I could only watch a little bit.
Mm.
But I texted Hunter right before I got on my meeting and was like, hey man, me and Tony Welsh were actually teammates at WVU when I was 18. And we were only teammates for like a year, but um it's just cool to see it go full circle from when I met Tony. And I was actually with Tony I was working at the mindset table
Mm.
like 3 days before because his brother, super good wrestler, committed to Ohio State. I was talking to him and his brother, and it was just cool to win it with Tony. I thought that was a really cool thing to have happen.
That is a really cool thing. It shows the connection to what you're kind of known for as being a wrestler at WU. And Tony bounced around, got D1 experience, and then ended up at my alma mater and now his alma mater at Waynesburg University. So, and is still known, he's still known as being a WPIAL champ from back in his high school days.
Yeah,
So,
man.
quite a lot going on. And I think it's cool that you have a personal connection to him because a co newcomer of the year, I think there were 7 nominations. That was a really deep category of
Yeah.
newcomer of the year. And you and Tony were undefeated. And I made my point on the show. I think that makes a difference. Although obviously everybody on that list was super talented. I think it's really important to get excited about the newcomers who are building their experience and their records. So you mentioned obviously Julian Flannery, who is the amateur fighter of the year. And I think you've been around him a little bit. What was it like seeing him get that win?
I haven't been around Julian too much in person. I talked to him over like Instagram and stuff a decent amount. I think I've only met him once in person. I've only gone up to the factory like maybe twice, maybe 3 times. But he's a super cool dude. Um, I think he's a fan of me. I'm a fan of him. So it's cool to have like a cordial
Yeah.
connection. And Pittsburgh's kind of known for having like everybody's kind of cool with each other, and I like that a lot. So yeah, it was cool to see Julian win. It was cool to see everybody win. Stout really showed out at the awards, which was awesome. I was a little salty. I thought Miguel was going to take the Emmy Fighter of the Year. I'm sure it was close. But yeah, it was cool to see Julian. It sucks because you see
Yeah.
it and then you're like, well, Julian won it. I'm not gonna be that like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's really good honesty for you because Miguel has made a great impact in his fights within 247. And it's announced that he's going to be on the card and they're looking to get a match for a title at 135 for the April 15th Meadows card, which is obviously a huge card. That's something that they we were talking about, but they were saying that's kind of a known thing for the April 15th. But yeah, he's made an absolute impact for sure. And I guess to kind of reflect on 2022, because we're now in 2023, they always do those like year in review. This year started with you living in Ohio, training at the Immortal Gym with Matt Brown and Mark Coleman, legends, I mean, beyond legends in UFC. They helped you, guide you, mold you, transition you from a wrestler from WVU. You got your debut in under them, and then you moved to the great state of Pennsylvania, which is actually a commonwealth, not a state, but you still moved to Pennsylvania, and then you transitioned to Stout. I know you're still connected to the Immortal Gym. So look back on that whole year, your move, connecting to Stout, still training at Immortal, and also Hammer House, and kind of how's all that been for you?
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, a year ago today, I would have been in college. Still, I think I went to an open tournament this day last year. So it was my first tournament back from an injury. Finished up my career, graduated, immediately jumped into a fight camp after a vacation with my girlfriend's family into a fight camp at Immortal. Took my first fight, won. And we moved out here to Pittsburgh. And, you know, initially when I moved out to Pittsburgh, and I haven't really told a lot of people this, like, I didn't know if I was going to stay. My girlfriend has like a job where she rotates all the time, so that's still going on. But, you know, I had such a good connection with, you know, mostly Mike and Will, but obviously my training partners. But I had such a connection with Mike and Will. I knew this was the best place for me to be, to progress in my career. And after my second fight, seeing kind of how it went, you know, from like a technical standpoint, I was pretty confident with my choice to stay with Stout.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm sure that the people that will be watching this appreciate you kind of being honest. Obviously, it makes sense to keep some things to yourself as you're feeling stuff out. But you mentioned that Stout represented very well at the awards yesterday, and you just mentioned the two winners for Coach of the Year, Coach Partnership of the Year, Coach Will and Coach Mike, and then obviously Stout also got it for Gym of the Year. So just an incredible show out there. What do you think you enjoy and appreciate about Coach Will and Coach Mike?
I think, well, one thing is they're very much, well, they're different a lot, right? They're different in how they talk. They're different in how they walk, act, everything. And they're different in their fighting styles. Mike would take you down, kind of ground and pound. And, you know, Will's a big striking enthusiast and anti-grappling. Will is like, I hadn't had like a super great connection with striking coaches just in general. I didn't have enough time at Immortal to develop one. But when I got with Will, it was just like it kind of clicked. Sometimes he throws around a couple big words that kind of go over my head, but aside from that, like Will's kind of the perfect guy for me, and then Mike is always just like home base because, you know, that's my foundation is wrestling. That's his foundation, even in what he trains now, which he's pretty high level jiu-jitsu guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can always look at Mike and kind of, you know, get his assessment off of what Will's saying, and how to apply it because Mike's, you know, been in the high level cages. So it's really the perfect thing. And then I still do have my connection at Immortal. I like to go out there, get sparring like 3 weeks probably before my fight. That happened for my fight in October. I went 3 weeks before, and then my fight that I was supposed to have in December, where I actually got hurt out there. I went out there. So yeah, it's working full circle with the Stout coaches, the Immortal coaches. But yeah, we got a lot of cool stuff cooking.
Well, that is really a great balance between the coaches that you mentioned, but also the fact that you're still close enough to still get out to Ohio. And speaking of Ohio, before we jump in to your upcoming fight, because this is both congratulations on getting newcomer of the year award, but also you've got a fight coming up. Talk just a little bit. How was the recovery process from December? It sounds like you were dinged up a little bit, but not enough to be on the shelf for a long period of time. More of a short recovery.
Yeah. So, you know, I've had a lot of injuries. I know my body really well. I had an injury that, I wasn't 100% comfortable with fighting with at all. And I'm super happy I pulled out of that fight. And I don't ever want to be somebody that pulls out of fights, but like, wasn't going to go my way if I didn't. I was supposed to fight a 4-0 guy,
Oh, that's right.
who was a wrestler. So, any grappling exchanges, I had a hurt arm. So any grappling exchanges, I knew I wouldn't be at my best, and I wouldn't be able to, I couldn't throw my hand at all. So I was like, this isn't going to go well. So pulled out of that fight, unfortunately. And then it was like, all right, well, I knew when it would be healed. So what I did, I sprained my MCL in my elbow. Throughout my wrestling career, I've sprained my MCL in my legs probably eight, I'm probably like 4 times each leg. So I knew the recovery. I knew like the time frame roughly. Arms are different than legs, but I knew where I would be able to grapple 100%, and then I knew when I would be able to like get in shape for a fight. So I was aiming February, early Feb, mid Feb. 247 was thinking about having an event in February. I think that fell through, and I thought it would be a good idea for me to take a fight in Ohio, because I'm going to have ground and pound, which the person I'll be fighting in April won't necessarily have that experience. So I think I'm putting myself at an advantage for my next fight, which is, kind of what I always kind of plan on doing is,
Sure.
putting myself in a situation where I think I have an advantage.
And we've talked, I mean, it's great that you can be part of the recovery process. I think a lot of times athletes, particularly fighters, sort of fight against themselves and their own recovery because they're tough. And it's important to be tough. But to your point, you've got to know what the recovery process is going to be. And so glad you're recovering well. Glad you used your information from what you did to your knees to kind of gauge that. But we've also talked on this show quite a bit about how your mind's always thinking about the developmental process of your career. And part of that is in Pennsylvania, which I think we've agreed is a good thing. They have some rule limitations that allow people to practice and work and get experience without being fully immersed into the pro rule set. And clearly, now that you're at the level that you are, and it's got a couple great wins, some ground and pound makes sense. And Ohio allows that. And in Pennsylvania, for people who don't know the ins and outs, in order for you to fight at what they call advanced amateur, which allows ground and pound, you have to have 3 fights with a minimum of a winning record after 3 fights. So 2-1 or 3-0. So you're already guaranteed to have that given your fight coming up. I don't believe your opponent for April has been announced, so we won't ask for you to break the news here unless it is public knowledge, but I don't believe it is. But since you brought up April, and we'll get back to the February card here in a second, how excited, it sounds like you're looking forward to that April card. How excited are you about that matchup? We'll later have you on to talk specifics because it hasn't been announced, but you kind of said that that's something that you've been kind of aiming towards the April fight.
Yeah. So like initially, like timeline wise, what kind of was supposed to happen was I was supposed to fight December, maybe get a fight in February and fight for the 135 title. And then, Miguel's planning, I think Miguel's more than ready to go pro. And it just made sense for him to fight for the title at 135, make the scratch weight before he goes pro. Cause before he fought in December, me and him were talking about he's going to go 145 for the title. I was going to go 135 and we were going to kind of, win it back to back. But I think, him making that scratch weight is a huge step for him before he takes the leap to pro. So April's kind of always been like guaranteed for me. The February fight, I got an opponent, 3-3 guy, fairly experienced, same age as me, out of Ohio. I think he fights out of a small gym. And he's a striker mostly, from what I've seen. There's a decent amount of tape on him. And that's through Cage Thunder. I actually know one of the like promoters through there fairly well. I've done a podcast with him. His name's Alex Henry. And that'll be cool, man. I'm excited to fight in Ohio. It's an hour and 45 minutes away from Pittsburgh. It's an hour and 30 away from Columbus. I think I can kind of field a good group between the two cities. So yeah, I'm excited for that for sure. February 18th.
February 18th for Cage Thunder in Akron, Ohio. And, you know, since you'll be going in with a 2-0 record and he's 3-3, that is still significantly more total fights in MMA, which again, going to your developmental process, that's a guy that has experience, 6 total fights. You're coming in with 2 total fights. So he has 3 times the amount of MMA fights you have, which makes a lot of sense to kind of help you test against somebody that's got more experience. And we've also realized in MMA that fights that end in losses for your opponent, he's obviously beatable. He has 3 losses, but he can learn a lot from that. So he still has those experiences, which means I think for you to go in and, you know, ideally get the win, that's still marching along in your career, because somebody with more experience, more skills potentially, or at least putting up potentially a little bit more of a challenge. Last fight we talked about, you were talking about specifically wanting to get your hands going, and you were starting to really land your cross very well. You've got really crisp, I think because of Coach Will, right? But you've got really crisp striking. So how important is you to kind of have that confidence that you are very much a striker going into a fight with a guy who's going to try to make it a striking fight?
You know, I think the first 2 fights prepared me well for it, right? I don't think I didn't wrestle very much in my last fight. I got a couple takedowns because I thought they were sealing the rounds. That guy actually initiated most of the wrestling, which I thought he might. And I kind of just naturally would end up like scrambling and ended up on top. I think my scrambling ability is probably my best ability in wrestling. But like ideally for both of the fights, I wanted to keep it like standing. Obviously the adrenaline flows and I know I can get a takedown. So when I get tired or, you know, I get too antsy, I get a takedown. But you know, I have confidence on my feet now, which I think will help, you know, just me be an overall fighter. I want to be somebody that can win in all areas against any guy. And that's kind of what I'm testing myself with, right? I want to fight a striker. My fight in April is a wrestler. I'm gonna, you know, get down higher level guys. And then, you know, when the calendar flips, hopefully we go pro and off to the races from there.
I mean, again, I love the fact that you not only have the skills in the cage, but ever since we first started talking before your debut fight last summer, you've got the mindset, the willingness to kind of put together a plan, stick with it, and look at those incremental steps. That you have great goals, but you climb a staircase one step at a time. You've got to put those steps together, and clearly you're putting that down very well. So I think at this point you've laid out your plan for your February 18th fight. A quick shout out for people that are from the Pittsburgh area. Go support Lucas by going out to Akron. Obviously, anybody who's watching this from Cleveland, you guys can make the trip down too. So it's kind of cool that it's right in between there. You've also talked a little bit about the April 15th fight. So I think it's great that not only are you looking forward to that, but that fans, because that fight will be in the Meadows, and that's just a fantastic event location. And I know that's always a big event for 247. Plus, you're clearly looking forward to that opponent, high-level wrestler, test yourself. So I think you coming on talking about getting the Newcomer of the Year award, much deserved, along with your former WU wrestling teammate, Tony Welsh. And now you've got kind of 2 fights already coming up in 2023 to help develop. You mentioned as of now that your plan is to go pro in 2024 once that calendar flips. Ideally, because you'll be 2 fights in to 2023 by the end of April, right? Because you've got 2 fights already lined up. So by the end of December, ideally, is it 2 more fights you'd want? 3 more fights, or kind of depends as it goes? A 4-fight year, 5-fight year for you? What do you think?
So I'm a big goal guy. I obviously kind of write down stuff. I think we've gone over this
Yep.
before. I work for a company, Wrestling Mindset, and I'm really big on kind of like mapping everything out. I'm having all my clients, my kids that are in high school right now, calendar flips instead of going with, New Year's resolutions that don't have necessarily a measurement, a measurable thing to look at, right? A lot of New Year's resolutions will be like, get healthy. What does that mean? um I'm a big like, all right, well, can I check it off, right? If your goal is to get healthy, work out 3 times a week, right? So for me, my goal is to go pro by 2024, this time next year. I put 4 to 5 fights. I want the, latter 2 or 3 to be like very similar to pro level fights, right? So I want them to be pro level guys, and I want to take them as like, pro level camps, meaning, maybe I usually take like a 6 week camp, maybe taking an 8 week camp, really, really dialing in. I want to do day before weigh-ins. So I don't plan on fighting in Ohio after this.
Right.
I want to do day before weigh-ins. I'm going to make 135 exactly. I'm going to do everything as a professional would do for the latter 2 fights. And then I have other goals along those lines, right? So I want to I was talking to Will, maybe take some sort of just striking fight, whether that be boxing, Muay Thai, whatever. And then I plan on maybe doing a super match jiu-jitsu, or going to an IBJJF tournament or something along those lines. But just training, nothing specific. Just training MMA and competing as much as possible. So if it's going to be 4 or 5 fights, I have no clue. Nobody knows. I don't even know. Like, we'll see. Hopefully 5. I like fighting. I like staying active. I think it's incredible. I personally like being on the 247 cards. I think 247 is the best promotion in the area. But I do think there's maybe a small chance maybe getting on one of the like UFC Fight Pass cards. I know I'd get promoted very well because I know some people in that like industry area, stuff like that. So maybe getting on like a CFFC, something like that, Fury. But yeah, obviously everything starts with the fight in February. Not looking past that opponent, obviously. Training every day, and then, looking a lot forward to April for that fight, and then going from there.
Well, thank you. And I also appreciate you pointing out your job is connected to the wrestling mindset, to coaching kids to develop, and you're using it yourself. You wouldn't be much of a coach of that mindset if you also didn't use it yourself. So I think that's a great example of what actual attainable goals are. A big part, like you said, you can start with an undefined goal, like get healthy, but then you've got to define it, whether it's workout 3. My immediate thought was take your resting heart rate when you're not in shape and then work to reduce it by 10 or 20 points or whatever, because resting heart rate or blood pressure, or to your point, working out so many days a week, that's a great attainable goal that you can base on. Or to your point, I also like, and I think things have kind of changed. You're working out at a great gym. You're going to be training MMA all the time. And then you may take some specific things like a Muay Thai fight while you're still training MMA all the time, I think makes sense, because you should be able to fight stand up. Just like if an MMA fight ends up being all stand up, you got to be able to fight stand up. An BJJF tournament makes sense while still training MMA. I know some fighters will say, no, if I'm going into a jiu-jitsu tournament for 3 or 4 months, all I'm going to do is jits, but then it makes it a little harder to get back in MMA. Or if you're taking Muay Thai, because sometimes stouts do Muay Thai camps and events, you still want to keep everything sharp so that you can swing right back in MMA. So I think personally, that's a great mindset to have. You're training MMA all the time, and then you can branch off depending on the opportunity. So I appreciate you coming out. I can't wait for myself and the MMA Fancast fans, I guess that gets confusing, to kind of follow along your 2023, particularly with the goals that you've set and some of the things that'll happen that we don't even know it's going to happen in 2023. Can't wait to see what happens by this time next year, where we'll still be talking, you'll be laying out your plans for 2024. So I appreciate you coming on. You've been listening to Luke Payson with Lucas, the Sniper Seibert, who is the brand new newcomer of the year for 247 Fighting Championships. Thanks so much, Lucas.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
You take care.